product design beyond aesthetics. So when I first thought about product design, when I first thought about design, I thought it was about making things look pretty. I thought it was about making things just look very elegant and very delightful. But the more I learned, I realized it's about making things work for people. So let me go to the next slide. Okay. So back in the days, Xerox PARC, which were the pioneer of modern UI, they didn't just invent the graphical user interface just because they wanted to make computers prettier. They actually invented it because they wanted to make computers understandable. So they designed it for people, for humans, and not for machines. So so far, in my journey as a product design, my understanding about product design changed when I stopped asking, how do I make this thing look good? And I started asking the question, how do I actually make this thing work for people? How does it actually solve their immediate problem? And in conclusion, I would say product design beyond aesthetics is not necessarily, it's not about making things look good, but it's about actually like it's about actually like using design that provides business value, functionality, and usability to people. So that's my conclusion for product design beyond aesthetics. So let me just go to the next slide. I want to be very brief and quite fast because my time is very limited. So the key skills needed to be a product designer in 2026, I've actually grouped them into 5. These are actually the 5 key skills. The first one is visual design. So you need to know how to use colors, typography, spacing, things of that. So actually like help create a design solution that can actually guide users and users can actually understand what is going on. The second key skill, which is very, very important, is user research. So you need to learn how to like conduct user interviews, run competitive analysis, right? You need to know how to like ask the right questions, right? Do competitive research. So all those things are actually part of user research. And user research is quite broad, but for the meantime, you can just focus on qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitative research is basically about running and conducting user interviews. Then qualitative research is just using other methods like competitive analysis to actually like, get insights on the product you want to build. Then the third thing is product thinking. So product thinking, you might not really find any course out there that will teach you how to be a good product thinker. Is on along the line in your career when you start building products, you now start, getting clarity on how to build product the right way, the right question, the right things to build for people. Like you start asking questions, okay, why am I building this solution? Who am I building it for? How do I build this kind of solution? So product thinking is very, very broad, but I believe that you actually develop this skill along your career. Then the fourth thing I also say is proficiency in design tools. So there's a plethora of tools out there. There are really, really so many. In fact, me myself, like I can't even meet up again. But the key tools that are actually needed to break into this industry is number one, Figma. Figma is a collaborative design tool for wireframing, for prototyping. So is your number one tool. Then you can also add other tools like Framer, which is for a no-code tool for building websites. Then you can also incorporate other AI tools like ChatGPT. But those are like the key. That's like the key tools you need to know for now. Then the fifth thing is actually storytelling and communication. So you need to also learn how you can actually like sell your design solutions to the people you are working with. You'll be working with stakeholders, you'll be working with product managers, you'll be working with a team of engineers. So you need to like communicate your design solutions to stakeholders. You need to be able to like, speak their business lingo. For example, you can mention that, okay, I redesigned this checkout flow because based on user testing, realized that this actually led to a drop off of for something percent, things of that. Or I created this flow because it only requires like 2 clicks or 3 clicks to like achieve your results. things of that. That's the way you actually sell your work to like stakeholders. And for engineers, you also need to like, speak their own language too. You also need to like communicate screens the way they can actually understand it. And, you know, I'm not, saying that you should start learning how to code. It's not necessary. But, learning a little bit of HTML and CSS later on is very, very good. Can actually help you, build confidence in actually like communicating your design solutions to developers. So these are like the 5 key skills needed to be a product designer in 2026. Now, okay, so these are the tools and resources that professionals actually use. And there are actually like lots of resources out there, but for people who are just for people who are trying to like break into this field, these are the 5 tools I recommend. The first one is Figma, which I said earlier, is a collaborative, is a collaborative and a prototyping tool for actually creating screens and collaborating with other people. The second tool is Framer. You can use it to build websites. You can also use it for advanced prototyping as well. The third tool is ChatGPT. You can use it to create microcopy. Microcopy are basically like informative text on your interface, right? So have you ever used an app whereby you arrived at a screen and there was nothing there? Maybe it was you have not created anything, and there was like maybe an empty state message. I was saying that, oh, you have not created anything yet. Kindly create something now. Those are like the micro copy that you actually see on your interfaces. And in most companies, in big companies that have like large budget, they can actually employ people who are actually writers, UX writers, to actually like write those micro copy on the interface. But in smaller startups, you were expected to do that. So this tool, ChatGPT, is very good, and you can also use it for research as well. The fourth tool I will recommend as well is Perplexity. It's very, very good for deep research. You can use it to run competitive analysis of different products. Let's say you're trying to build a product that is similar to maybe Stripe or PayPal or Paystack. Then you can just go to Perplexity, write a prompt that, okay, I need you to like run a competitive analysis of this product, Stripe and Paystack. Can you mention their strengths, their weaknesses, and areas of opportunities? So Perplexity is a very, very good tool for deep user research. Then the fifth tool, I actually came across this tool late last year, and I think it's very, very good. So the name of the tool is Wix by Google. So you can use it to create, vector shapes, illustrations that you can actually like embed into your interface. And so these are the list of resources. So the first one is Evernote.design. It's a repository for tools, resources, tutorials. Like you will find a whole lot on this website. Then the second thing is Figma design playlist. I'm going to share this slide immediately after I'm done. So you don't need to worry about, trying to like write it down. I'm going to definitely share the slide with you. So the second thing is Figma design. You need to learn how to use Figma. And most of the videos out there, or most of the tutorial videos out there, are very, very outdated, right? So the best way to learn Figma is from actually the people who actually created it tool themselves. And they have like a playlist like showing how to use this tool step by step. Then you also need to also learn like just the basics of graphic design, right? Color theory, how to use typography, hierarchy, and things like that. Then the fourth thing is this is a platform where you actually get to see very beautifully designed websites. You can get inspiration when you want to create landing pages or things like that. Then the fifth one is a mobbing.design. Actually, you can actually find like design patterns from world-class products like Twitter, Spotify. So by seeing all these designs, that's how you actually train your designer. That's how you actually train yourself to actually spot good design and to actually create good design. So you need to like study from the best so you can actually be the best. Then you also need to, there's a dedicated course that will also teach you user interface design. And there's also a free course by Google that will teach you UX design as well. So when I share you this slide, you can actually have access to all these resources. So the next thing is, so how do you build projects that get noticed, right? So this is not very complicated. It's straightforward. So what you do is that you pick a problem, can be any problem, but ensure that your problem actually makes people's lives easier or productive. It can be a study planner tool or an home workout app. So some people, there are a lot of people that have very sedentary jobs, and they often don't even have time to even go to the gym to like work out. So you can actually create something, you can create a solution in your own workout app. I'm just giving an example. It can actually help people stay fit because they don't really have the time to go to the gym. Then when you have picked the problem, then you solve the problem, right? You break the problem down. You now start in the problem, you start highlighting the methods of your research. Okay, what were the research methods you use? Was it computer analysis? Did you research what other apps are doing? Or did you conduct a user interview asking questions that, okay, asking some questions that can actually give you insights to give you insight on how you can actually design your app. Then you put in the design prototypes, you test the problem, you test the solution with your target users. Then you still refine again till your users are satisfied. And when you are done with all that, then you can publish your solution on platforms like Behance. So Behance is a platform whereby you can actually upload your work. I'll call it like, I'll say it's the holy grail for designers' portfolio, designers' work, right? So since you are just starting, you are just trying to break into the field. Some people might say that you need a website. Honestly, you don't necessarily need a website. You just need to just show to your maybe to your show to the recruiter or show to the hiring manager or show to the person that wants to employ you that this is your work and this is your work. As long as they can see your work, that's what really, really matters. So let me go to the next slide. So this is like a beginner friendly roadmap for you to actually get started and to actually like learn the skill. You can actually like learn the skill within 6 months, right? You can have like a very good understanding of the skill within 6 months. So the first month, I would recommend you learn the basics of design, learn about color theory, learn about how to use typography. Then you can also learn Figma as well. Learn Figma, start practicing, start learning how to use the tool to actually create designs. Then what I also expect you to do is to start going on these platforms like Dribble or Mobin. Try to replicate these designs. As you're replicating these designs, you're basically like reverse engineering how they actually created these designs. It doesn't have to match the designs 100%, but as you try to replicate it, that's how you actually train your design muscle, right? So do this for 1 month. Then the second month, you can still keep replicating designs. And I will I won't advise you that the designs you have replicated, don't post them online. It's not your own designs. You just replicated someone's designs, right? Don't post them online because the person who created that design can start attacking you online that, oh, you're stealing my design. So just use people's designs on all these platforms to just train yourself. Then still master the design tool. Then also learn UI design as well. So there's a dedicated course that I've included in this slide that actually teaches you how to like principles of UI design. Then the third to the fourth month, learn UX design, right? Learn UX design. You can also still replicate designs on Dribble and Mobin. By that time, when you get to the third, fourth month, you even get better replicating designs. Then, towards the end of the fourth month, you can start thinking of your own design concepts, right? Start thinking of your own design concept. You have already learned UI design. You have learned UX design already. You have also learned how to use the tool, which is Figma, to actually create designs. Then think of your concept. You can even come up with something like a simple calculator that visualizes the before and after tax reform. Right now, we have a new tax reform policy, right? So you can create something like that. That's for like third to the fourth month. Then for the fifth to the sixth month, right? At that point now, you want to start preparing yourself for your first role, which is an internship or a junior level role. So you need to create at least a case study. Now, like I said, I've already mentioned how you can actually build projects. You can actually use this um all these steps on how you can actually build your project. Then pick any problem. Just pick a problem that is worth solving in any industry. It can be in finance, can be in health, can be in crypto. So for in finance, you can just create a case study on maybe an investment tool on helping people, invest their money helping people invest their money so they can get better returns, right? You can create a tool like that. Then, follow these steps I've mentioned earlier. Then when you are done, you can now post your work on Behance. Yeah, post your work on Behance. You can even use like um there are different case studies on Behance. So you can even check what people have done. You can just look at how they actually presented their work. and use that one to like guide you on how you actually present your work. Because you know, it's one thing to actually create good designs, but it's also another thing to also present your work very well that people can okay skim through and say, okay, this guy really knows his stuff. Then as long as you can do that, you can create a case study within a month. Then the other month, you can start posting few design concepts, right? Now, this one is not even a case study. You're just taking maybe two screens, maybe a login screen, a sign up screen, or a settings screen, or a dashboard screen. You're just posting it online regularly on Twitter and LinkedIn. That's how you actually like build your visibility, and that's how people actually notice you. So within, if you follow this, right, this is not a complicated roadmap at all. It's actually very straightforward, right? Follow this. I'm very very confident that within 6 months, within 6 to 7 months, you will definitely get your first role in the industry. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for giving me your undivided attention. So if there's any questions, right, if you want me to still go back, just let me know.
All right, thank you so much, Israel, for that session. I hope we all got one or two things from that. If you have any questions, please note them down. You get to ask your questions at the end of the session. I know personally, if there's one thing I learned from Israel Adebulube's session is that design is problem solving and it's not just about decoration. So now that we've talked about designing solutions, let's talk about measuring impact and telling stories with data. I'm sure all of you, there are people here who want to go into data, be it data analytics, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. This session is going to leave you with it's going to leave you with clarity. If you can turn numbers into insights, you become valuable in any industry. So I want you all to join me as we welcome our second speaker for the day, um, Bolahan Adebayo, a senior data analyst at Sanlam FinTech.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. I wish I had a slide as nice as Israel's. When I said it was 15 minutes, I just thought probably I would send whoever I had over to you at the end of the session. So I'll probably just talk through and then I'll send whatever resources to you. So my name is Bola Adebayo. I'm a senior data analyst at Salam FinTech, and going to talk about few points that relates to data analytics and maybe a little bit more specifically visualization, because in my day-to-day role at where I work, I am very much involved in the visualization side of things, right? Because it's a corporate, and then there are several people that are involved in the process of what happens to the data before it comes to the end phase. So generally speaking, data analytics is so if you want to think about it, I would love for you to think about it as the writing phase. If you have a book, right? It's the process of um, interrogating the data wherever the data is being stored, right? So like there's an entire life cycle for that. So we can start from a very simple example of, let's take a supermarket that you go to every weekend to get groceries. And then at the moment you're trying to sign out or like leave the supermarket and pay, sometimes you're asked if you have a customer's account, and then you say, oh yes, I do. Or sometimes you say, no, I don't. If you don't, and then they ask you, would you love to open one? And you say yes, and they ask, okay, what's your name? What's your phone number, for example, right? That's data they're collecting from you already. And then in the process of scanning your groceries, they scan the code, they get the price, they impute it into the system, and then you get to pay for your goods. Now, everything you bought is linked to your name somewhere, somehow in a database, right? Um, and then you go, and sometimes some supermarkets, like they do this thing where you buy something above a certain amount of money, and then they give you a free voucher, like 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira, right? But then you start to wonder how they're able to like know that this is the amount of things I bought over time, and then this is the time for a voucher. So basically, the entire process of that interaction is them organizing and getting data from you, basically getting data from you. And then that data could be stored in anywhere. It could be in Excel worksheets, or it could be in CSV files, or it could be in database, in data warehouses, right? It could be stored either data warehouses that are related to the cloud, like Snowflake, or the more recent ones, or you can have MySQL and the rest of them. But that data sitting down there is not really useful until you can make decisions with it. And that's exactly where data analytics come into play. So that data that you have could be structured, could be unstructured. But say somewhere close to December, the CEO of the entire chain of stores wants to know what products they should probably drop, or that they should improve on, like getting more of in the fall for the new year. Now, that's where you as a potential data analyst comes in. Like, you're probably towards the end, but you have the data engineers at the beginning that would, like, create pipelines for the ETL process, extract, transform and load. And more recently, it could be ELT with DBT and the rest of the newer tools. But just to skip being too technical, that data that you have is driven into like the warehouse, right? Into a repository where it can be queried, right? And then depending on the manipulation of the structure, some data modeling is being done. By data modeling, what I mean is, you as a customer, you're giving your information, right? So that's a customer table. Your name, for example, there is a unique identifier to you because you're a customer, and every customer is unique, right? It could be your email, it could be your phone number, right? And then there's a transaction table. Transaction table refers to all the things you, like when you came, what did you buy, right? So every transaction is an ID, the list of the goods that you bought, they have their price. But those goods too, they are the cost price as well, right? So there's a transaction table. So let's say you have the customer table, you have the transactions table. Now, the person that attended to you, that attended to you, for example, is also an employee, right? So all the different employees have the different customers that they attended to. And so you also have an employee table, the employee name, you know, how long the person has been staying there, whatever information that they might want to do. Now, there is a link between all these tables, right? Which is what comes into play when we talk about data modeling. And that is like a very important part, like towards the process of getting to the end goal of analyzing the data. And so you bring these tables together, you create your models, you're able to connect to it, and now comes to the end product. Because when you're trying to present to the stakeholder, if you show your stakeholder SQL queries, for example, that you're writing to get to answer, like query the data, to ask questions from data, it probably wouldn't make as much sense as when you have a bar chart, right? It's easier for you to understand that if you have 5 numbers, 10, 9, 8, 7, or and then I write those numbers out and I tell you to tell me which one is like the third highest, compared to when I show you bars that represent each of those numbers and ask you to pick out the third highest. So that's where visualization comes in, right? It's almost like the publishing part of the process, the design part in some ways, making it readable, making it engaging, making it clear for an audience, basically. So it focuses on the what and the so what. So now that entire process is almost the life cycle. But where does this actually start to make impact? It's where you're able to go back to the stakeholder and you're saying, so when we analyzed the data that we had over like the several stores that we had across Nigeria, we noticed probably during a particular period when something was happening, we were able to sell a lot of this particular products. And so we ran out of stock at that particular time because we were not able to get up to that. And so we probably lost customers and probably didn't gain as much as we should. So preparing for next year, if something similar is going to happen again, we should probably increase how much of this product we get to stock up. So this goes from you walking into a supermarket to putting your details and your transactions to making decisions that affect the entire, the entire company as a whole. And that shows you how powerful data analytics and visualization could be, not just for you as the analyst, but also for the stakeholders or whoever is going to make decisions. Now, the question is, if this is so powerful, how then do I get the skills needed to be involved in such a process? Now, it starts from the most basic, right? Having some understanding about what data is, right? Like that's the first thing, right? There's so much information out there. But then in terms of skills, one thing that's always been available since time immemorial is Excel, right? Microsoft Excel. And Microsoft Excel could be as worksheets with several tabs or CSV files. So learning how to use Excel is almost as basic as it gets, but it's also really, really useful because you still have a lot of information being stored in worksheet and CSV files. So that's usually a great place to start, basically. And then Excel, for example, can only store several, I don't know, maybe max 1 million rows. I can't say exactly what's the limit, but that doesn't really work when you have like really big companies or really big institutions, right? So well, now we have warehouses, right, where you can store as much information as you can imagine in different tables. And for you to query those databases, you need to have knowledge of SQL, right, which means structured query language. Some people call it SQL, SQL, basically a choice. So you have to have knowledge of SQL. I would talk about like how to expose your resources in a bit. So you have to have knowledge of SQL because that's very important. Um, and then when you query this data, you're able to get like results, you're able to get tables, you're able to get information. But like I said earlier, it's easier for us as human beings to understand visual information faster, right, than numerical uh, information, basically. So you need to have some knowledge of a business intelligence tool. I didn't say visualization because there's so much that goes into it before you get to the building of dashboards and reports. So it's like almost a full business intelligence tool because you have to understand what data modeling is. You query data, you have tables you've gotten from SQL. How do these tables come together? How do they relate to each other? How can you use it to make visualizations that not only tell the true story but are impactful? So you have to learn a business intelligence tool, and then there are several of them on the market. There's Power BI, there's Tableau on the other side. I'm more on the Tableau side because I use Tableau in my day to day, and I'm also a Tableau ambassador. So you can learn a visualization to like Tableau, basically. Starting out, especially since this conversation is mostly about beginners starting out, having a strong knowledge of these three tools is usually very, very good to get your foot through the door. And then most times when you work at different companies, you get to deal with different stack, right? Some might involve you to use more of Python at some point. Some you might be involved in some little bit some analytics engineering, which might involve you using DBT. Some might involve you using like tools that are more related to what's happening on the e-commerce side, probably Google Analytics or GA4. But having a basic knowledge of these three tools as a beginner is usually very, very good to start, basically, in terms of your skills. In terms of resources, I mean, we are in a age now where there is like AI, like Israel said, there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Gemini, there are loads of all these LLMs that you can interact with. So that's a good place. But as always, there is also materials on course websites like Udemy or Coursera. I would be sure to leave a link or several links with the moderator after this section. So there are several courses on Udemy, several courses on Coursera and on YouTube. I would share some of the ones I used for starting out because that could be good. But in this age of quick changes and improvements in everything, you might want to stay on track as close as possible. So you might want to try to research like what is new, what is now outdated, what is up to date, and all of that. And building our skills is great, is amazing. But if you do build out these skills and you don't get to apply them to your work program like can prepare you for an environment where these skills will be needed, then it's going to be hard for you to get opportunities, right? So that's where it makes sense to build projects, right? And then to build projects, especially for Tableau, that I know there's something called Tableau Public, which is like an online repository of dashboards where you can see it's like the Behance for visualization, if I could put it in a very simple way. Basically, I could share my screen to show what that looks like quickly. Let me know when you can see my screen. Right? Okay. All right, so this is Tableau Public. You can see my screen, right? Can someone see, because I can't see the meeting page right now?
We can
Yeah.
see your screen. We can see
Okay.
your screen.
Yeah, so this is Tableau Public. This is like an online repository of millions of dashboards, right? And you can have your portfolio here. So if you see me here, for example, so this is my portfolio, and then this is like some of my works that you can see over time, right? It's usually good to have your work on portfolios like this, because what it does is shows progress from the beginning of when you start building out things and then progressively over time. This was my first dashboard. I don't probably think this is probably my greatest, right? But you have to start from somewhere. You have to start connecting to data sets, to start like trying to understand the modeling parts, trying to put information together, building KPIs, building charts. This is my first dashboard. And then what a portfolio does for you, it shows that progression, and then it makes it easy for you to push it out there when you're trying to look for opportunities. So I was able to move from my initial dashboard being like that to having my more recent dashboard looking much more like, allow me to praise myself a little, looking much more better compared to where I started with. And then you can keep putting out things in terms of visualization. You can work with Tableau, you can publish to Tableau Public. And when you publish to Tableau Public, your work is available for anybody to view at any time. When you work with SQL queries, you can push it to Git, you can share wherever you have, also on LinkedIn, on X, or wherever is best. So stop sharing. Okay. So that's it in terms of tools and like how you can build projects. I would probably share like more links and all. A beginner-friendly roadmap that I would say or I would share is to probably start from Excel, because it's probably the most familiar with everyone. I remember being in secondary school, we all used to rush to the computer lab so we can play with some Excel and then CorelDRAW. I don't know if CorelDRAW is still being used as this. Excel and Microsoft Office. So it's a great place to start, Excel, because it's much more familiar. Start with connecting, importing data sets, writing things, creating pivot tables, power pivots, all of that. And then once you're able to gain some knowledge, you can then try to start playing around with SQL. There's Lead Code, there's HackerRank. There are several really good websites for you to improve your SQL knowledge. Snowflake allows you to create like a free account for up to 30 days, where you can also try to import data sets into Snowflake, try to query it and like improve yourself. And then because it's usually makes sense for the end user, could be me, could be anyone here as the audience, to understand like whatever process you've done up to that point, you can then connect wherever data sets you have or wherever information you've had connected to a visualization tool or a BI tool, build dashboards, build projects, build reports, and then try to put it out there. So that's basically the roadmap that I would share, especially when you're starting out. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bolanwa. Please, if you guys enjoyed that session, react. I'd love to see your reactions. I want to know everyone is following along with the session today. And I hope you all got a thing or two from that, because I know I did. I'm also a data analyst myself, so that was also interesting to hear Bolaho share his roadmap. And if there's one thing to remember here, it's that tools, it's not just tools that get you hired, it's the insights. How do you communicate your insights? How are you visualizing your data? All of that. Now that we are done with our second speaker session for the day, let's move on into the engine room of tech, where ideas become real products. Software engineering is where logic meets creativity, and contrary to popular belief, you don't need to know everything to get started. We've brought one of the top software engineers in the country, Israel Inyonsi, and he's going to be sharing his journey and his roadmap for you today. Please join me as welcome Israel Inyonsi, Senior Software Engineer at Altech Soft. Israel, please take the floor.
All right. Thank you very much, Imelda. Guys, please confirm that you can hear me. Is I audible?
Yes, you are very audible.
All right. Thank you. So, thank you for the opportunity, guys. I'll just be diving right in. Let me just share my screen real quick. Also, let me know where you can see my screen as well. You see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So it's showing two tabs, right? Okay.
Mm.
All right. Hi guys.
Welcome to my very short expose on software engineering. As Imelda has rightly said, it is the engine room to everything that runs digital. So everything you see, um, everything that's digital, that we call digital world, that we call tech, runs on code. Um, Beautiful for all the ideas, when the UI, the product designer designs a product and um, of what he wants to achieve. And we are mostly called implementers. So sometimes I know term software engineer or software developer or programmer is very common, but some companies still refers to us as implementers. So uh, I'll just be taking into a short expose. So the code, a beginner's guide to software engineering. Um, Software engineering is problem solving with code, right? So you see, it makes things like solving real world problems, using code. And you might not want you might want to ask what coding is. Maybe it's your first time hearing it, or but it's basically a set of instructions given to computer to perform specific tasks. Um, you can. I would like to even take it further to talk about the program, um, and I would like to break it down in this simple step. Let's say you want to prepare rice, right? Uh, you first need to select the rice, wash the rice, and select the pot you want to use, like the stove, pour water, or just a simple temp parboiled rice. Um, Wait for a certain amount of time coming in to check it. All of these activities that you do is like a program, really. So whenever you say you want to cook rice, these are the things that you do, right? So it's also the same thing with programming and code as well. Um, Whenever I want to do a certain task, there are a set of instructions that we have programmed the computer to do, right? Those specific instructions is what we call code, right? The entire spectrum or the entire scope is what we call a program, right? So where do we find code? Everywhere around us, apps, ATM, banking systems, everywhere we find code. Our role as software engineers is to build, maintain, and improve these essential systems. Next slide. What software engineers really do. Um, First and first, we build systems, write code that make effective systems work. We maintain, we fix systems. We also improve, carry out enhancements, to ensure that over time it meets the business needs. Also, we collaborate with designers, testers, product teams, uh, DevOps engineers. That's not on my slide, but and as a software engineer, there's something that was told to me then when I started. You never stop learning. Technology shifts every 2 years, like literally, like every 2 years, technology shifts, like literally, there's a major groundbreaking change every 2 years. So you will be committing yourself to a lifelong learning where you have to stay up to date with new industry technologies. You have to make sure that um, you're up to date with what's happening out there. Next slide. Common myths that are currently debunked. Math genius are required. So, short story here. When I was in school, and um, before I went to school, I was told that programmers are very broke. You know, you leave your hair unkept, you look very tattered, you always spend all your hours on your computers, you know. What else? They told me that it's very difficult. And it looked very mysterious, really, because like watching it from a movie and the hacker just goes, pa, 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 pa. You see a bunch of things simulated on the screen. Trust me, that's not how it is. There is long, lengthy hours of looking at one line of code, and suddenly it just clicks. Like suddenly it just clicks. It just comes to you, right? After making a couple of research, maybe you're trying this stuff, it's not working, and you're looking at the code like this. Like last night, I spent up till 5 a.m. this morning, and I still haven't solved the problem. I just went to sleep. I'm sure maybe after this meeting, I'm going to open it up and probably I'll find a solution. So, common means math genius are required. You don't need to be a math genius to be a software engineer. What you need is to have a problem-solving mindset, right? A formal CS degree. You don't need a formal computer. CS means computer science. You don't need a formal computer science degree. I've seen marketers. I've seen pharmacists. I've seen linguistics, all being software engineers, and they're very good. There's a lady that I know. She studied linguistics. She's an iOS developer. She's very smart. Like, I'm wondering, why did you study linguistics in the first place? Like, she's very smart, right? So first thing you need to know is to have a problem mindset. If you're one of those persons who, when somebody asks me, oh, what should I do in tech, or how do I get by in tech? I'm like, I ask a certain kind of question. Do you like to solve problems on your own? Do you like to do DIY stuff? If something gets bad in your house, you have the urge to fix it. Would you want to look and see what the problem looks like and try to know what the problem is before the technician comes? So these are some of the questions you ask yourself before you say, oh, I'd like to be a software engineer. I'd like to write code, right? If you are not inquisitive about the problem, you will never be able to come up with a solution, and you can't be a software engineer. And also, some people also don't know that problem solving, you can also learn it. So let's say you didn't know how, we're not naturally gifted to want to solve problems, right? From when I was a child, all of the electronics in my house, I would press, I know how everything works. Like from 5 years of age, like my father would say that I would carry the remote and press that remote until I know what every single function on the TV can do. So that's my mindset growing up, right? I would literally just, any form of electronic, like I really want to know, like I want to know about it. Like my mind is very inquisitive, right? You will make a very good software engineer if you have that. But if you don't have that kind of mindset, it can be learned, right? You can start small. If something gets bad in your house, try to find out what's the problem. Like really look at it. There was a time my solar inverter had issues. I had two lithium batteries. One of the lithium battery was discharging into the other one, and it caused a fault. So I was like checking. Before the technician could come, I had known all the problems I could. If it was just for me to fix it, that was remaining. I already know what he needed to buy, right? So that's the problem-solving mindset will help you go far. Expensive hardware, yes, you don't essentially need an expensive hardware. A basic laptop is able for you to start. Then you need to know everything first. No, you don't need to know everything first. Trust me, being overwhelmed is part of the journey. Let's say, for example, like maybe you're there in the chat right now, and you're like, oh, software engineering, man, it's so hard. Yeah, that's the feeling you get. But the truth of the matter is that it's not really hard. It's hard because you have not tried, right? The more you try, I wouldn't say the easier it becomes. I would say the more comfortable you are with that kind of level of difficulty, right? So it's the more you do it, the more you allow your mind to become very uncomfortable, the better your attempt in software engineering. Moving on to the next slide, I've stayed here for long. So choosing your path in tech. So software engineering is broken down into, actually, let me just restrict this to coding. Software engineering is more broad, right? Everyone on this call or the speakers were software engineers, both the data analysts, the product designer, we're all software engineer. It's all part of software engineering, but I'll restrict it to choosing your path. I mean, this is supposed to be choosing your path as a developer or choosing your path as a software developer. So we have front-end development. Everything you see, I wouldn't say touch and feel. Everything you can see on the screen is UI, right? It's front-end, right? Everything that presents you with data, right? Or with information, right? That you can see is UI, right? It's front end. Then back end is everything that handles logic. Like I said, when I was giving my analogy on cooking rice, all of those steps, like you knowing that, I'm sure that before you cooked rice, somebody told you that, oh, you have to wash the rice, you have to get a pot, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. That person was programming you, right? So when that person finished dishing out that logic to you and shows you how to do it, the next time you want to do it, you're not confused. You know the program. All of that logic that's happening, all of those thoughts that's happening in your mind, that's back end. You doing cooking the rice is front end because everything you're doing is display. But the thought process, the internal logic, what you don't understand, what you can't see, that's the back end. That's the logic. All right. And full stack development is a master mix of both front end and back end skills. So if you can do both, like me, I started as a UI UX designer. From there, I moved to coding. So I have I've functioned as a business analyst. I've not functioned as a data analyst though, but I functioned as a business analyst. I functioned as a product manager. So like the whole product development life cycle, I functioned as a DevOps engineer, database engineer. I functioned as a tester. So the whole full software engineering spectrum. The only part, I think I've also done a bit of data analysis through Power BI and Excel. So I think that counts. So from the whole full spectrum, I can say, okay, yes, I've done all of these software engineering career paths in some way, right? So for somebody who can do both front end and back end is known as a full stack software engineer or full stack developer. So the process is called full stack development. Moving on to the next slide. Overcoming the waiting to be ready. Yes. The common mistake is that many beginners wait for a feeling of confidence that never comes. They get stuck in tutorial hell without ever building. Yes. No amount of tutorial you watch can make you become a builder. Action will make you a builder. Please give me a second, please. So the common mistake, so they get stuck in tutorial hell and they never end up building. So sorry, I lost my thought. I got distracted by the people downstairs. Okay, I'm back. So no matter how many tutorials you watch, tutorials are very beautiful, but you need to take action. Action will move you from an enthusiast to an actual software engineer, right? When I started to write code in 2010, I watched a simple HTML tutorial. And the next thing, I put the video on one side. I put the note, there it was Notepad. Notepad, Dreamweaver, and the likes. I think it was just Notepad and Dreamweaver. Really. That's what the most popular. So you put your Notepad on one side, you put the video on side, and the guy was watching me, I was coding. He was watching, I was coding. I was watching, I was coding. He was watching, I was coding. I was doing immediately. At the end of the week, I built HTML and CSS. I was like, oh, that's good, that's good. And the rest is history. So you want to embrace the struggle. It is very difficult to learn, but it's very rewarding, right? You need to allow yourself to feel the pressure, right? If you chicken out easily, that's why, I mean, there are many software engineers, but there are not many software engineers, if you know what I mean. Right. A lot of people also just write code, really don't know what they're doing, so long as it works. Right. Because it is painful to learn, but it's very rewarding. The best practice, the most effective way to learn code is actually to write code. Yes. Start small, break things and fix them. Be very anxious to learn. Moving on to the next slide. Essential tools to start your journey. We have hardware. You need a basic laptop, Windows, Mac, or Linux. I didn't even add phone. You can use phone. You can even use paper. I wrote on paper. So you can use paper. I did not add phone and paper, but I'm just trying to be nice. Phone, paper. You can look at the screen, write the code on paper. Even if it doesn't run, you know the syntax. Then software, you need a modern web browser like Chrome, Firefox, Edge for testing. need an environment. So an environment is like when I mentioned Notepad, then it was Notepad, Dreamweaver, those are like environments. Now we have things like VS Code, we have Replit, we have Notepad plus plus, but use VS Code is the number one IDE. Then you need to have a curious mindset, I know the way the country is, it doesn't. Software engineering is something that drains you. I mean, every tech skill drains you, really. If you want to really excel in it, there are lots of people there, but having block out time, like if you block out time for it, you can't do software engineering without blocking out. You literally have to block 8 hours of your day, or minimum 4 hours of your day if you want to do this, right? You need to have a curiosity mindset, patience, and curiosity and patience are your most important tools. Next slide. Now you need to master your editor and browser, your workspace for typing, organizing, and debugging code. The word debugging means trying to understand the problem. So it's a programming term, it's a software engineer's term, right? In a regular scenario or in a normal IT scenario, it will be called troubleshooting, right? Or in regular life scenario, you're trying to find out the cause of the problem. Yeah. So that's what debugging means in software engineering. So debugging, so your workspace for typing, organizing, and debugging code. VS Code is the industry standard for beginners. I said that already. Web browser is where you see your code come to life. Use developer tools. Let me show you what developer tools looks like. So if you inspect, so this here, every browser has what they call developer tools. I know most of you have not seen this before, and it looks very confusing. Trust me, when I saw it the first time, it was very confusing. So I will not get into all of that, but this is what they call developer tools. It's in every browser. So you use developer tools to inspect and fix your work in real time. Moving on to the next slide. Choosing your first programming language. So we've talked about software engineering. We talked about programming as a concept. Sorry, no, not as a concept. Programming as it literally is. Then we've talked about a little bit of programming as a concept. And we've talked about the tools that you need to start. Now we need to talk about the language. Now, programming is a concept on its own, right? The language is a tool. It's a tool that you use to bring your design to life or your logic to life. So for most of our applications run on web. So let me just give you a small sheet. There's a difference between website and web app. All right. A website is just a collection of pages, static pages that render data to the front end or the web browser. A web app is an application, a literal application, just the way you have applications on your laptop or on your phone, but it is hosted on the web so that you can access it from the web. All right, that's different. So you would want to start from building simple static pages. That's where things like HTML and CSS, they come from. They're the building blocks of the web. HTML provides the structure, while CSS handles the design and the layout, right? So the structure of your page, I don't know, I'm trying not to go so deep because we have a lot of beginners. The structure of the page, how the page is structured, just let's call it the foundation. When you want to build an apartment or a house, you lay the foundation, right? So think about HTML as the structure, the foundation, while think of CSS as the embellishments, the styling, the paint, the colors, right? That's what CSS is. Then think about JavaScript as the electricity to run the house, right? You need electricity to power systems, to power your washing machine. So think of JavaScript as your electricity, your power. So that's what JavaScript does to static websites. It makes them come alive, right? So JavaScript is, so anybody that wants to get started needs to start from these three, right? You need to start, these are like the foundation. Like you want to start coding, you you start from these three. They will give you a mental picture of what programming is all about. Right? It doesn't end there because as you go deeper, but these are like this is like the simplest way. If you're not okay, so if you're not a nerd, if you're not a genius, if you're not somebody who learns things fast, you would want to start from here because this gives you quick reward. Or like somebody, I remember the first time I picked up C++. I'd not even seen HTML. Okay, no, I've seen HTML, But I mean, like somebody who's really smart can just start from the deep end, can just pick the concept of programming and he will understand it and he will try it out and to work. So, but the basic natural normal person will start from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is where you start from. Python is known for its readability and versatility, is excellent for logic, data, and data science and automation tasks. So another language to learn aside JavaScript would be Python. There are other languages, right? There are other languages like for the Nigeria ecosystem, we have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, Java, and Python. Those are the languages that is running the Nigeria ecosystem. Largely around C#, Java, and HTML, CSS, and TypeScript. There's Python market, but it's not as much as these other guys I mentioned, right? So the whole bulk of the market, in short, even in the world, really, right? The whole bulk of the market in the world. So if you learn HTML, CSS, and Python, you are in a very good place. You only need to master one language to understand. You see, this part is very key. You only need to understand one language or master one language to start understanding the core logic of software engineering. Mind you, writing code is not software engineering. Software engineering is broad. I mentioned a couple of roles earlier. Everybody on this call that spoke is a software engineer. Moving on to the next one, version control and saving progress. When you're writing your code, you need a form of structure to keep up with your progress, to save your code, to start off from where you stopped, or to build features in a modular form whereby all of your files are not modeled up together. So it brings us to something called version control, right? It's essential think of version control as good. This diagram that I have on my screen is a perfect example. Think about it as a very big tree that has many branches, but the root is the main source that helps all these branches to function. So the root is your main application. All the branches are the different feature branches of changes of stuff that you've done. When you're done, you merge it and it all goes back to the root, right? So the root is the main application. All those systems are just branches that branches out, right? I don't know if I'm overwhelming somebody, but I won't stay here for long. So Git, basically what you need to know from Git is that it helps you to save your code progress, right? Essential tool for saving your work safely, tracking every change you make, undo your mistakes, and also a professional standard used by every professional team globally to collaborate and to collaborate on complex code bases. Now, learning Git is very essential as learning how to write code. I repeat again, learning Git is very essential as learning how to write code. I'm moving on to the next slide. A simple roadmap for beginners. We said this already. Choose a language, write code daily, build a small project, apply what you've learned in building something real. Sorry. Let's go back again. I have a 90-day roadmap. I will also share this at the end of the meeting as well. From zero to writing code. So from day one, your goal is from day 1 to 30, you want to make sure that you are comfortable with code. Like literally, it is overwhelming. Honestly, like it is very overwhelming. I remember when I was trying to learn product design, UI UX. I mean, I was costing. I was just enjoying. I was having fun. My tutor then was very particular about UX design. So we started off before we even did any UI. We had learned UX so far, so it was very stable. So I wasn't even overwhelmed. But trust me, if you start to write code, unless you are a very, very smart person, you are going to be very overwhelmed. So you need to first of all get comfortable with code, remove fear. I remember how many times it took me to understand what variables are, how to declare variables, what variables do to your computer. So you don't have a computer science degree, but as the journey progresses, you're going to be a computer science expert at the end because you need to understand how the code interacts, how it saves your memory. All right. So the first 90 days, you'd want to. Okay. So yeah, thank you, Iman. I've seen it. So at the first 90 days, you want to get comfortable with basics. Next 31 to 60 days, you want to start building small projects. And last 30 days, you want to start thinking like a software engineer, whereby you move from learning how to use code to solve problems to focus areas, improving your projects. I'll send you the slides. My time is up. I would want to round up by saying start now and keep going, right? Proof of work, projects to show you different understanding, to show what you understand better than any certificate. So if you watch a tutorial and they give you a certificate, doesn't mean you are not a software engineer. It is the more you write code. And if you notice, I did not put AI in my slide. You can use AI, but AI will just make you dumb as a beginner. I did not put AI in this slide on purpose because you need to learn by doing. You need to actually understand what every code does. You need to understand what I use AI every day now, but I didn't start with AI, and AI is not the foundation. You need to know how to write code. All right. With that, I would say start writing code and stay consistent. Thank you very much. Mother, you're muted if you're speaking. You're muted since I
Oh,
stopped.
sorry. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for your session, Israel. I forgot I was muted. Please, Akande, can you mute, can you switch off your camera and turn off your mic? I don't know if you can hear me. The person named Akande, please, can you turn off your camera and your mic? Thank you so much for that session, Israel. Actually learned a lot. It was also interesting to hear that we're all software engineers, and I hope you all enjoyed that session. Now that we've heard three different tech parts, we'll be bringing all our speakers back for an open panel discussion about starting, scaling, and staying consistent. Now, this is where all of you, I would need everyone to pay attention, whether you want to start a path in product design, data analytics, or software engineering, you'd want to pay attention because I would be asking the necessary questions that would help everyone know how they will start in tech and actually go into high income roles. So I'll need all the speakers to turn on their cameras. This discussion is going to involve all three of you. Um, Israel Adebulube.
Sorry.
I don't, okay. We
Sorry, please
want to have,
repeat what
okay.
you just said.
I said we're about to have the open panel discussion now about
All right,
starting, scaling, and staying consistent. So it would involve all three of you,
all
as
right.
I'll be asking, yeah. And then for the viewers, please pay attention. If you also have any questions from this session so far, note them down. You have the opportunity to ask them. We'll only be able to take if questions from a few people. So once it's time, just get ready to raise your hand so you can ask your question. So let's start our panel discussion. I'll be throwing questions to our speakers. So anyone who feels like they have the right answer to the question can just speak up. So our first question, we are going to start with starting in tech. These questions are supposed to help people gain clarity on starting in tech. So the first question is, what's one mistake beginners should avoid when starting out? So any of the speakers can answer. To anyone who feels like they have, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, you could go first, Israel.
Okay. Um, I would say one mistake that beginners should avoid is being obsessed about tools. And that was one of the mistakes I also made earlier in my career. So back then, there were new tools that were coming up. There were so many. I was just, oh, let me jump from this tool to another tool, from Photoshop to Illustrator to Protopie to this to that, right? So avoid that mistake, right? Just focus more on getting good at the skill, which is design, which is product design, right? And also, I think the same thing for software engineering as well. Get good at, learning the programming languages very, very well. There are different code editors for software engineering, like there's Visual Studio, Studio Code, and there are different. There are many actually. So don't get very obsessed about the tools, right? That's why in my slide I only just mentioned very few tools. I kept it very, very brief. Tools are just tools; they come and go. Very soon, all these tools will not be. They will not be. There will be no more because other tools will replace them. So get very good at the fundamentals, which is very, very important. Whatever tool you have, make sure you maximize it and utilize it very well. Yeah. So yeah,
All
that's
right.
just one
Thank you
mistake.
so much, Israel.
Um, yeah, I think Israel and the software engineer also said something I want to resonate about certificates, right? Like don't hoard certificates, right? Having a certification that should you completed the course does not automatically make you an expert at it, right? It's how you get to apply what you've learned, how you get to build out projects that are out there that really improves your knowledge about things. And then two is if you're going to pick a tech path or a career, you will most likely just try to stick to it as for as long as possible. I initially fell into the trap of starting to learn about product management, and I was like, okay, no. My friend talks about data marketing tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I want to take this one next, or the data analysis next tomorrow. Okay, this. If you're going to become really good at something, you have to spend a lot of time towards developing yourself at it. And it's better for you to focus on one choice and try as much as possible to make or break it there than to jump and move from one point to the other. The time you spend moving or jumping from one point to the other might be much more helpful if you get stuck on one and trying to get better at it.
All right. Thank you so much,
I'd like to add
Bola.
something. Sorry, I'd like to add something.
And
I like
okay.
that something very key. Yeah, that a lot of people don't know. I feel like you share it. As if you're starting as a beginner, don't try to master it. You see, scaling interviews, you'd want to. It is as much knowledge that you know that can help you scale an interview and get a job. See, learning how to write or coming into tech is one thing. Learning the skills is another thing. Learning the job is another thing. You don't want to spend more than 6 months learning a job. Sorry, learning a skill without getting a job. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get tired. So, out of experience, I'll tell you, learn like it's an accelerated program. Don't try to know everything. Understand, even if you understand everything at surface level. If it's for software engineer or software engineering, the same approach applies as well. I would say break everything down into smaller topics. If you're learning about um, HTML, at the end of learning HTML, just do a small HTML project. You don't have to master it, just move to the next thing. Now, if you learn this way, within 6 months, you'd have covered 3 years of software engineering or 3 years of any skill. Now you know a lot. You're not a master, but you know enough to get a job. So that's all. I'll leave it there.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your answers. I think those were very insightful, and I hope we all got that. So this next question, this is one question that people ask me about, and I would really love to hear what you guys have to say about this. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of beginners here with us too that would like to know the answer to this question. So if one was to start their tech career now, today, what high income roles or paths would you recommend, especially now in 2026 with the era of AI? What roles or paths would you recommend one should pivot into?
Um,
Mm,
I can only speak for what I do. I personally, I really believe it's more about choosing something you want to get into and getting stuck at it, and then trying to make sure that whatever tools or whatever resources are available to you, you're able to maximize them to the best of your knowledge to learn, basically. You have the likes of these LLMs. That doesn't probably mean that you should entirely focus on that as how you get to learn. You probably need to learn the basics first, and then if you are really good at what I've just found out over the last few years is if you are really good at what you do, I mean, you don't have to know the A to Z of it, but if you are really good at what you do and you're really good at explaining how what you do can help a company get better at what they do, you would get jobs. It's not easy trying to apply for remote roles from Nigeria here, or sometimes the job market can be quite difficult. But if there are two things, there's solid proof of what you can do. That is, you have like a portfolio, you have things out there that can you can use to present as proof of what you do. And then when you are required to answer questions or to try to defend yourself in interviews, you can do a good job of that. You can basically make a career out of any path you choose. It's just about making sure that your whatever luck you have while trying to apply for jobs, it meets preparedness basically, because that's what really makes you get those high earning roles that you're looking for. So I'm not sure if I would say you should particularly go to one thing or the other. I think you can be good at anything as long as you take enough time to be as good at it as much as possible. You try to present a solid proof of how good you are, and then when you're asked to defend yourself, you're also great at doing that. I think you can attract as many opportunities as possible.
all right. Thank you so much, Bola. Would any of our speakers like to shed more light on that question?
Yeah, I would say I would I would I would want to break it into two markets, like local markets and international markets. For local markets, I would say learn coding. Really, if you can learn how to write code. If you can't learn how to write code, you can learn product design, right? Nigeria is still a very what's the word now? We're still a build more building. I don't know the right English word to use, but we build more, right? So we'll be needing more builders. So understanding and what is only the way tech is moving now, right? Where we have AI, helping to if somebody can use Lovable to build a website, Framer to develop a website. So as much as coding is very important, you want to learn how the software design truly works, right? Because if you understand that, you can go ahead and use AI to build websites. You can also deliver value, right? You can, if you know how products are, the software development life cycle, if you understand that, you would be able to go to Lovable and build a site and say your work is to provide uh, software solutions for SMEs. There are so many businesses in Nigeria that don't have a website. They don't have proper tech representation online. And if you know how to build products and you are still learning, while this is like while learning how to write code, you learn how to design products and flesh out the features and stuff like that that the business analyst would do, right? If you can do that, then that's a very high income skill whilst also learning. Then for international markets, There are a plethora of skills really, ranging from uh, uh, s- uh, everything tech really. I don't want to break it down so you do, but anything tech will sell in international markets. But you want to start from local market. I started from international market by the way, but you can want to start from local markets. It's easier to get jobs in Nigeria as a tech related person than getting jobs abroad.
All right, thank you so much, Israel. Um, Moving on to the next question. This will be the last question we have about starting out, and then we'll move on to scaling. If you are starting today with zero experience, what would you do in your first 30 days? And um, I would also like us to not just focus on just our role, like just in general now. So people that are not in like that are not in like data analytics, product design, or software engineering, they can also learn from this too. So if you're starting today with zero experience, what would you do in your first 30 days?
Okay, let me just go first. First things first, I'll first learn about the web, right? You need to understand the internet, how the internet. If you're a complete beginner, you don't know anything. Like this tech that I've been saying, tech. You don't want to start by understanding how the internet works, right? There are courses you can take online that just explain how the internet works, right? They explain how things work whenever you come online, what's happening there. You'd want to learn about different tech rules that are out there, right? You want to learn about the internet, you want to learn about different tech rules. And if you are trying to find out which one works for you, you might just learn about all different tech rules and see the one that really appeals to you, that really speaks to your kind of person, really. You know, you might not end up where you started. I repeat, you might not end up where you started, but you just need to start. Maybe like when I was starting, it was coding first for a while, and I just entered UI UX, came back to coding again. So you don't end up where you start, right? So learn about the internet, you'd want to know how the internet works. You can't be in tech without understanding how the internet works. And also you need to learn about the different rules we have in tech. So that's what I have.
Um, just adding to that, I think one thing I did was I was very intrigued, and so one thing I found interesting was to go to YouTube and search for just simple things like a day in the life of a software engineer or a data analyst or something. If you have zero like idea of what that means, just watching someone talk about how they do their stuff. Although some of those videos can be very superficial, where they have to drop camera into the car and all of that. That's not really the main part of it. But just watching what it looks like to actually work as a software engineer or as a product manager or something could just be the most basic thing that you have to do. You don't necessarily get to like get the technical part of that, but just starting out for that your curiosity of wanting to get into something, looking at how does someone that does this, like what does that day to day, like, although they will probably show you the fancy and the fun parts, but just watching that as the most basic thing, right? Like a day in the life of a software engineer at wherever it is. It's not the most technical, but it could really grabs your attention. You could say, oh, I like this thing, or I like that thing that I saw, or watching this, I actually like this one more, and then you start from somewhere and then you find your way because like I said, you must start from somewhere, not eventually end up there, but you just gotta start first.
Okay, I just want to just chip in this for people who actually want to start a career in product design. I think I mentioned it in my slide. For someone who has zero experience and wants to break into product design, for the first month, start learning the basics of design. I've also dropped a link that explains like the basics of design, learning the basics of design. And the most important thing is go on those websites I mentioned earlier, which are Dribble and Moving. You see like world-class product designs, like world-class apps that are being designed by professionals. Try to replicate those designs. That's how you get better, right? Try to replicate those designs. As you are trying to replicate those designs, you're going to fail. You fail, you try again. And at the same time, you're also using Figma to also learn to create those designs. So you're also learning Figma as well. You're also learning how to actually design, like improve your design muscle. So for the first month, That's what I'll tell you to do. Replicate designs and learn the basics of design. Yeah. So that's just it.
All right, thank you so much, our speakers. I hope we are all following along. If we can give reactions, so I know everyone is paying attention and following along and understanding what our speakers are saying. All right, please, I'll need more reactions, so I know we are all following. All right, thank you so much, guys. So we are going to move on to the next step, next stage, which is scaling, basically. And the first question here is, so let's say as a beginner now, I've been learning, I've been studying, I've been putting what I've been learning into practice. How do I know when I'm ready to apply for roles? Um,
Mm, okay, this one is quite tricky.
yeah.
So, how do you know when you're ready to apply for roles? When I got my first job, I was not ready. Oh. I just got, I just got it. Someone just referred me for the role. Okay, this guy, I believe he has the potential to actually do the work. So you will never ever be ready. But the most important thing is that before you even start applying for roles and before you start telling your friends that this is what you do, can you, refer me to anybody that requires this kind of service? Learn the basics. Like first complete that 6 month roadmap that I mentioned earlier. Then what you can do is you look for, so there are different job roles online, right? On Twitter, I can even teach you on ways that you can search for jobs, both internship to senior level roles on Twitter and LinkedIn. There's an app to it. So you can actually see all those jobs that are being posted immediately. So you quickly just apply on time before other people, apply to the job, right? So look at the roles, look at the requirement. What are they looking for, right? What are they looking for, right? When you compare like 5, 10, different job requirements, you will spot a pattern, like the main skills they're looking for. Is it Figma? Are they looking for someone that's very good with Figma? Are they looking for someone that is very good with design systems? Are they looking for someone that does more prototyping? Look at all those things. Spot the common skills that all these job roles are looking for. Then ensure that whenever you are dropping your portfolio, highlight those things. You can even draft like a CV or a resume, right? Mention those skills in your CV or in your resume. Mention all those things there, right? So that's, at least that one will actually like help you like secure your first role as a product designer or whatever it may be.
All right. Thank you so much, Israel. Are there any of our speakers that would like to shed more light on that question? How, as a beginner, how do I know when I'm ready to apply for roles? Um,
When you build, first of all, three very important projects in your portfolio, once you have three industry projects on your portfolio, that speak to the most important aspects of the prerequisites of your field or your role, don't wait. Don't wait. I have testimonies of some friends of mine. There's this friend of mine, right? I I taught him how to write code. At the fourth month, he was already playing. He was so distracted. So I said, "Oh yeah, now let's design your CV now. We'll find work for you." His first interview, he got the job. So you never know if you are ready. He wasn't even ready. He got the job. So you never know when you are ready. But this, I will just dash you this little metrics and say, once you have three projects that you've worked on, minimum of three projects that are industry standard, you can start looking for, either you look for a junior role or you look for a free internship or you look for a paid internship. But you must get one of the three. If you go on Well Found, there are so many people that are looking for equity developers to start their project to work for free. If you work for free for like 6 months, you already have hands-on experience to go and look for the real job. So that's why I rest it.
all right. Thank you so much, UNC Israel, for that. Before we move on to our next question, Bola, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, not really. I think
Oh,
it's pretty
okay.
much going to reinforce what I've said. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So the next question now is what skill, so this is for all our speakers, what skill had the, so this is just one skill now based off of your journey. What skill had the biggest impact on your growth that beginners often ignore?
Ah, this is a very nice one. So this is the act of learning. So two skills actually. Knowing how to learn is one. Like if you have to go and watch a video on how to learn, then also learning how to watch videos in faster times than 1x, like the regular 1 second. It got to a point I watched videos, I was watching video as 2 times the speed, right? Because I needed my brain to assimilate faster. I didn't start that. I was crazy at first. So I increased the video to 1.2, I increased the video to 1.5, and finally we ended at 2, right? I don't think I can do that right now. I've not done that in a while because my brain has elapsed. But learning how to learn is a very important skill. Knowing that you don't need to learn everything at first because you have like a lifetime to work with this skill. So learn as much as you can, right? Do as much as you can. So what learn a skill that I cannot take away from you as a beginner is you need to know how to learn. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Israel Adebulube or Bolan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I just want to just add what my namesake has said. So learning how to learn is very important. Knowing how to being adaptable is very, very important. So the industry is moving very fast. New tools, new workflows, new expectations, right, are coming up every day. What product designers were expected to know 5 years ago is not what they're expected to know now because there's a lot more, right? Back then, there were few tools back then, and the requirements were not so much. But now it's kind of much now. So you must be able to be very adaptable. You must be learning very fast. As you're working, doing your job, still take time to learn, right? Take time to learn. You can even pay for some courses, for some cheap courses on Udemy, right? Then the second thing is, which is also very important, and this one we actually take your career to the next level, is taking ownership, right? When you can take ownership, you're actually seen as more valuable to the organization. You don't necessarily need to wait for permission before you design this screen or before you suggest this workflow, right? Just do it and present it to your boss. When you start taking ownership, right, you're going to be more valuable, and you're going to be you'll be this kind of person that is very, very difficult to replace in the organization, right? So those are the most important skills that can actually level up your career: adaptability and ownership, taking ownership. Yeah.
Um,
I'm going to add one skill, I would say for me is consistency. Getting stuck and keep going at it until you get get better at it basically. Fine, you get to learn a lot, but sometimes there are periods where you don't feel as good about it, where you don't feel like it's making sense. There are periods where you just want to stop, letting like go do something else. Being consistent at it is very, very important because that's the only thing that makes you become an expert or something. Like whatever you spend as much time as possible on, that's how you get to improve yourself and refine your craft. So it's very important that you're consistent because if you're starting out, you are usually very tempted to see someone else doing something that you think it probably might be easier to do rather than what you're currently doing. You just have to like stick to it and be consistent.
all right. Thank you so much. I loved all of those answers, and I'm pretty sure the viewers would have understood that and taken something from that. So this will be the third last question about scaling, and then we'll move on to the next part. So generally, as you are now and the level you guys have gotten to in your career, how do you think one can scale their career? like go into a more high income role? Like, okay, I'm done with the beginner level. I've learned the beginner things. I've gotten a job as a beginner, whatever. How can I grow bigger into like a senior role or a senior position? What are the steps to take? What are the actions I need to take to get there?
Um, So for me is if you've gotten a job and then whatever like organization or wherever you are, one, you really have to understand like what the business is. But no matter what skills you have, whatever you know must be able to, because at the end of the day, the goal of all the organizations or like all the startups at some point is to generate like money, basically. So whatever you do, you must be able to understand how the business works, like whatever skill you learn, how does this business make money? What are the important things that are important to the stakeholders in this business? It could be from the customer side of things. If you're building products or you're building anything, you really have to understand how whatever you do makes sense in the overall scale of how the business works. And then when you're able to really understand that, it's easy for you to make impact because that's what really drives like your growth. Once you start like having opportunities, you're in a company or you're doing freelance or whatever like part you decide to go with, if it's on the client side, you have to understand how whatever you're working on really makes an impact. And then that really helps you to be able to firstly understand whatever problem you're trying to solve much more better. And then you make sure like your problems are fine-tuned to the overall goal of wherever you find yourself. So wherever you are, in a scenario where you've gotten a job or you're working in an organization, you have to understand how things work, and then you have to understand how what you do fits in the overall scheme of things. So that makes it easy for you to be able to give your efforts and impact much more.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that, Bola. Um, to Israel's Adibulube and ENC, is there anything you'd like to add
I would
before we wrap
say
up?
go upskill. Currently now, the buzzword of the tech industry is AI. You also need to learn about it, right? So there are prerequisites for every role, right? Um, I'll borrow from what Bolan said, take ownership. If your company sees that you started taking ownership, yes, they'll start giving you more responsibilities. They might not promote you, but those new responsibilities that they're giving you, they are for the new role. When you are ready to leave that company and you tender your resume, nobody will give you a team lead if you have not led a team where you were before. So one of the way to grow is take ownership, take more responsibility. If you really want to grow, take more responsibility than you are currently taking at the moment, so that you can get some of those, you can back some of those experiences, right? For when you want to leave. If you've taken responsibility of a team lead for 1 year and your company does not promote you, please leave and go to another company. They will employ you as a team lead. All right. So that's what I would say. Upskill, get new courses, learn new technologies that are relevant to your field, and just take ownership.
Right.
Yeah, I think Israel has said it all. Like taking ownership, taking more responsibility. That's how you skyrocket your career. And the second skill that is also needed as well, that is highly valued if you want to like move to the next level as a designer, right? Is you also need to improve the level of your craft. Your tastes, your design taste must be way higher than last year, right? So I was watching a video of a designer that was recently employed at Lovable. Does any of you know what Lovable is? I'm sure you have been hearing about it, right? So he was
Mhm.
given a big design role at Lovable, and one of the main reasons why they hired him because the guy's designs were just too mad. Like his quality of his work was like very high up there. So fine, companies are looking for people that can think, that can solve problems, but even though fine, they're looking for people that can solve problems, you as a designer, they also want you to bring something unique to the organization so they can stand out in the market. So taste is very important, and ownership as well is also very important.
All right. Thank you so much to our speakers for sharing insights onto scaling your career. So now we'll move on to the third part before we take questions from the audience. Consistency. Now we're going to take two questions on this. How can one stay consistent when progress feels slow? When you feel stuck, when you feel like nothing is working again and you just don't know what to do, how can one stay consistent? Please, Okorafor, can you turn off your yes, thank you. So to the speakers, the question, how can one stay consistent when progress feels slow?
Um, okay. When I started, I had somebody who was my accountability partner. When I started my career in UI/UX design, I had somebody that was also a UI/UX designer that also started at the same time with me. So this is where I feel very, I have very low energy to like continue. It gingered me. And this way it felt low, like had low energy to continue. I also gingered him. So having an accountability partner will actually help you to be consistent, right? It's very, very important. Then I think second thing as well you can do is well, I think that's the only thing I can suggest if you want to stay consistent. Having an accountability partner. Yeah. So
Right,
yeah,
all
this is one.
right, that's a good one. That's a good one, actually. We all need an accountability partner. I don't know if Bola or Iyonsi would like to shed more light on that before we move on to the next question.
Um, I would say take breaks, right? Like Israel has said several times, you can be an expert at the first day of trying. For every time you feel frustrated or for every time you feel tired, it's okay to take a break, to take some time to touch some grass and get back at it. You can learn everything in a day. You can learn everything in 6 months. This is something you plan to build a career out of. So you like the most important thing is being there as much as you can and taking your time to make sure you learn. So take breaks, touch grass. If it's getting tough, it's okay to take some time, ask for help. There are communities out there in whatever pathway you choose that are like very, very helpful. So if you are finding it difficult to find one person as a kind of as an accountability partner, look for much more general communities where you can, ask questions, where you can connect to people on a larger scale. If there are meetups that you can attend, feel free to find a community that's as close to you as you can. It can be virtual, it can be in person. Communities are extremely important because they help you learn new things. You get to connect, you can network, you can even get new opportunities. So it's very important when you don't learn in isolation. So two things basically in summary. Take breaks when it feels tiring, when you feel frustrated, and then look for a community so that you're constantly motivated.
All right, thank you for that. I like the fact that Israel mentioned accountability partner and that you mentioned community because Tech Unchained basically it's a community and it's a place where everyone should feel among. So I don't know the people that are part of this webinar right now. I don't know if everyone is part of the community. At the end of the webinar, would be given free access to everyone who attended, everyone who registered to join the community. So if you're already part of the community, if you haven't been active before, now is the time to be active. After this webinar, you can post about what you do. Then there will be someone in the community that also does what you want to do. You guys can talk about it. You can find your accountability partner in the Tech on Chain community. Things are going to get heated in the community this year. And so for all of us in the webinar now, I'd encourage all of us, if you're not part of the community yet, you should go ahead and join the Tech on Chain community. So moving on to the next question. Someone asked, how do we join the community? So if you registered via the calendar link for this webinar, your email is already recorded, and we are going to send an email to your email address that would have the community link and the 90-day templates. Everything you need is going to be in the email. So look out for your email address too. We'll share the link on the call. I'm going to share the link on the call, but I'm also going to send it to your email addresses as well. So the next question, how do you balance learning new tools versus mastering fundamentals? So now I've learned a couple of tools, I've gotten substantial knowledge on them. How do I balance what I'm already like good at, or maybe medium level good at, to learning new tools? Because like you guys said, there are new tools that come out like every day. You could be learning how to use SQL today, and then tomorrow there's this new tool that at your workplace they're saying you need to use AI for. So how do I balance all of that together?
So there are core fundamentals, right? There are core fundamentals in every field, right? Yes, there are new
Mm,
tools that come up, new technologies, right? But um, the core foundation is still there. Say, for example, you as a beginner, you should know. That's why I said in my slide, I didn't put AI. It's not like I couldn't, right? So like it will make you learn faster, but you have to learn the core fundamentals, the things that hold your industry, right? Once you know those things, it will be the any other new technology will just be an add-on. That's why I'll leave it.
all right. Thank you for that, Beyonce. Um, do any of our other two speakers want to shed light on that? Sorry, Israel Adebulube, I don't know if you want to say something because your mic is muted.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think I mentioned earlier that tools come and go. There was a time that it was not Figma that product designers were using. It was Photoshop, the PNUT, Illustrator. Those were just tools you get, right? And now there's this new tool that is out there that they're now pushing designers to start learning, which is Cursor, right? Rather than just designing your screens in Figma, you can actually like prompt them in Cursor, and your screens come out as actual workable, like working apps, right? So tools come and go. Don't focus too much on the tools. But the most important thing that you need to focus on is on the fundamentals. Get very good at the fundamentals, right? Strengthen your fundamentals. Know what good design is, right? That is like the most important skill. Know what good design is. When you can, when you get to that level whereby you're creating very high quality work, tools are just they're just there to aid your work, right? Then again, you can always as well like pick up another tool if you know one already. For example, now if you know Figma very well, there's another design tool that is similar to Figma, which is Sketch. If you know Figma very well, it's always easy to learn Sketch. Now there are some companies like Apple whereby they want all their designers to be using Sketch. Sketch is like their primary design tool. Even though fine, you have not touched Sketch in the past, it was only Figma. It's always easy to pick up Sketch, right? The same thing for Facebook. Facebook have their own design tool they use. They use, I think, Origami Studio. But Figma, the interface with Figma and the interface with Origami Studio, they're very similar. So you can, if you know one tool very well, it's always easy to learn another tool. But the most important thing is that have very strong knowledge on design theory and have strong knowledge on what good design is, right? That is very, very important. That is very, very important. Don't bother or don't worry about tools, right? If you know one tool very well, like I said, it's always easy to like learn another tool while on the job. So even though you just get the job, I don't know the tool, they will not harm you. They will just say, okay, fine. You can just give you like 2 weeks or 1 week to just play around the tool. And that's how you pick up. Yeah, exactly. So that's just it.
Mhm. Okay, so I don't know if it's just me, but the question, I understand what um both you and EONC have said. But the question is also about how to strike that balance between learning a new tool and mastering the fundamentals. Like I know the fundamentals now, I'm still mastering them, but how can I strike a balance? If there's a new tool that pops up that I have to learn, maybe the company wants me to learn, like how do I strike a balance between both of them?
Okay, striking a balance. Well, so that means, okay, let's say you got a new job and um there's a tool that they want you to learn, which is maybe Miro. Miro is like a whiteboard tool, right? I believe that you can just take some time during the weekend to just play around these tools. Trust me, these tools, the kind of tools they are making these days are not that complicated to learn. To be honest, we are past the era of Photoshop, all these very bloated software that you have to spend hours, if not days, trying to learn, if not months, trying to learn all these tools. Right nowadays, the tools that they're making are actually a little bit straightforward. They carry the same principles of the previous two. So just during the weekend, take some time, play around the tools. Just play around the tools. In fact, um, you can even you can even find somebody, maybe somebody that knows the tool within your organization, just to put you through, right? If you can spare 1 hour, right? So all these, like I said, all these tools that they're not that very complicated to learn. Like if you just devote like few hours, couple of hours during the weekend to learn it while on a job, right? I believe that you can definitely pick it up very fast.
All right, thank you so much. For lack of time, we'll be moving on to the audience questions. So for our audience now, I hope you're all listening. If you have any questions for our speakers, remember we'll only be taking questions from a few people. So you can indicate by raising your hand and then I'll call on you to ask your question. So remember, you're here to gain clarity. Don't be shy to speak up or ask your question. You have to leave here clear, with a clear understanding of what you want to do next. So the floor is up to you guys now. The floor is on you guys now to ask your questions. Just indicate by raising your hand and I'll call on you. Does anyone have questions in the audience? If there are no questions, that's fine too. Though you can unmute your mic and say your question. Okay, but let me read this out. You have a question here. Please, the person that asked this question, can you let me see. He says, for someone trying to break into cybersecurity field, is it essential or rather compulsory to have full knowledge on coding and programming in general?
Okay, for
Uh,
cybersecurity, what you need to know is the internet, what APIs are, how requests are sent and requests are received. That's all you need. You don't need to really write code. You just need to understand the internet.
all right. Divine, does this answer your question? I mean, you can speak to if you want to, or you can just send a message so we understand if
Yes,
that
it
answers
does.
your question.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Does anyone else have any question to ask? If you have any questions, please, I'll urge you to ask your questions now so we can move on to the end of the webinar. I'm just going to give a few minutes for anyone that might be thinking. Then we'll move on. Um, all right, it seems we don't have any questions. Again, maybe the
Yeah.
audience
I
fully
mean, this
understand what has been said. Eh?
depends what you share refreshments, item 7.
Don't worry, we'll share digital refreshments. So don't worry, we are coming. We have a lot to share. We even have a 90-day action template. That's part of refreshment. That's what we need at this stage, not biscuit and Fanta. So now, I'm just going to ask our speakers one question, one last question, and then we'll round up. What's one uncomfortable truth about tech careers that beginners should hear early? Because I know right now everybody's, I want to get into tech, I want to get into tech. But what's that one uncomfortable truth that people don't know? Like behind the glamour and all of that, what do people need to know about tech? An uncomfortable truth people need to know about tech careers.
I think it's the idea that you get to travel the world and be free, and you get to, live the life. It's about 10% of people in tech that do that. If you want to travel the world and you want to be free, remote jobs so I'm talking based on us in third world countries, right? People like us in third world countries, that remote freedom is not really there because most jobs they want you to come. If you live in a busy city like Lagos, and you live on the mainland or you live on the island, you're going to still face that hustle of coming to the office, right? And then the other myth that comes where they think, oh, people in tech, they're just chilling. Like, if you really want to milk out the system, you're not going to have a life. If you want to just earn your basic salary, you'll be fine, you'll be okay, just be okay. You'll just be moving at a very slow pace because expenses will take your bills, right? Will take your finances. But one of the myths, like I'll end it there, I'll say, they give you the impression that people in tech that they just live free lives, they're very chilled. Yes, it happens, it works, that happened. That's a wish for everybody in tech, but it is constant 9 to 5s. You sit on your desk. Sometimes you even do 16 hours, right, for one job. Like this weekend, I'm still working, because I want to meet up my deadline by Monday. So a regular 9 to 5er, once they close their job, that's it. Once they get home, nobody's gonna call them, nobody's gonna disturb them, nobody's gonna tell them anything. But you in tech, if they're sending money and the money did not deliver, they'll call you. So the work sort of continues.
Yes, I get that. I think that's something all of us can agree on. The work never ends. You're always doing something, you're always busy. And for you to even actually really grow in tech, you have to put in a lot of work. It's not rosy. For you to get to the point where it's rosy, it's a bit rosy, you have to put in a lot of work. So I don't know, Israel, Adebulube, and Bola, would you like to shed more light on
Yeah.
that question?
So this is one thing that a lot of people don't talk about tech. So tech its health hazards, right? You're sitting down all the time pressing your computer. You tend to start developing eye strains frequently and back pain, right? I think it was last year or 2 years ago. I had very, very serious back pain, extremely, it was very crazy, right? So don't get too glued to your system all the time. I know fine, you want to make a living, you want to move to the next level. Ensure that you're spending some time to take good care of your health. Work for 1 hour, 40 minutes a day. Try to rest your eyes, and you can see all of us we're using glasses. Try to get very good glasses, anti-blue light glasses, right? That can actually protect your eyes from the screen. It's very, very, very important, right? It's very, very important. And I think the second uncomfortable truth is that if you want to be a baller in tech, well, it's not easy. It's not easy. If you want to be a big boy, it actually takes an insane amount of work, right? It takes an insane amount of work. So in tech, if you want to move quite fast, there's nothing like work-life balance. When people are like my namesake said, when people are closing by 5, going back to their house, meet their family, and when they're going home, you're still thinking of work in your head. Okay, I still have some things I need to do, or I still have some things I need to learn, or I still have some people I need to reach out to, right? That's how you'll be able to like move very fast, right? So that work-life balance, take it off your mind. You're just starting, right? Ensure that you're working like Mondays to Saturdays. Sundays you can rest, you can go to church, come back, rest. But Mondays to Saturdays, ensure that you're working so that you can move you can move quickly. That is the only way you can actually like move very fast and start making a decent income. Then from there you start climbing up the ladder and start getting to the next level. And at some point in your career, you might not even necessarily need to be writing code or designing or any of those things, right? You start maybe they'll start giving you like leadership roles whereby you just be supervising or managing, right? So, and again, the good news, the good thing is that the good thing about tech is that after you have spent so much time in tech and you have acquired a lot of skills, a lot of skill sets, communication, coding, design, right? How to build products. You can even start up your own company or you start up your own agency or, you know, start up something, or you can even start creating courses that can actually help the next generation to like become to help the next generation break into tech. So yeah, that's just
All
it.
right. Thank you so much. While we were talking, two new questions came in, and I think we'll just take these two questions and round up. So the first person says, "Thank you to all the speakers today. You're welcome. You're welcome. It has really been an insightful session. Thank you." Person is asking, what tech skill will best suit someone who is a medical professional and is looking to unite the medical knowledge with tech skills? Did we get
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So I would start by saying, from when I was giving my session here, I said you have to evaluate your problem solving skills. Tech is all about solving problems, right? Um, I would say go on YouTube and type the top 10 skills and top tech skills of 2025. Learn about them, like just do a small research about them and see which of them appeals to you more. Then also find out if that one that you like will fit into the Nigerian market or the global market, and how easy it's for you to transition into that skill, right? Because, like you said, you're already a medical um, professional, um, and it's quite tough when you want to get out of a job to pick another job. There was a guy that I heard about that wasn't. He was a medical. He was a medical doctor, and he decided to go into cybersecurity. It took him almost over 2 years before he got his first job. So right, and all he had was small crypto that he was trading, right? So it can be quite tough. So you need to make an informed decision. So go on
All
YouTube,
right.
look at the top 10 skills of 2025, and then pick the one that appeals to you, and also check how it relates to the market and how the threshold for getting job is. Like I said before, it doesn't matter where you start in tech, you always switch.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Israel. Oluwapelumi Adekoya, does that answer your question? I don't know if the person is still on this call. If he answers your question, please indicate. If not, we can further expatiate on the answer. Okay, all right. Okay, so to the second question, how do you keep from burning out when the workload or the on-call rotation gets intense?
I think this one is very straightforward. You have to rest now. But
Mm.
with firewood, to be honest, there's a colleague of mine that we used to work together. So when he started his tech career, this guy was just going hardcore every day. Like he was basically sleeping for maybe 3 hours or 4 hours a day until he realized that he had some serious illness in his body, right? And he was always having migraines all the time, right? So nobody had to tell him that he should, start um start taking appropriate sleep, like taking adequate sleep, which is 8 hours a day. right? He said that he doesn't miss his 8 hours a day, or that no matter what, if people are even calling him, Alpha, we need to do this, right? He has a specific time that he sleeps. So he takes that time to sleep. Then, like I said, when you are starting, you don't really have a job. I said that you can be working from Mondays to Saturday, learning the skill, right? But when you have a job, right, and you have a job, right, it's not all the time you have to work on Saturdays. Maybe that Mondays to Friday you work, then Saturdays, Sundays you use it to rest, right? There are people that have actually died. To be honest, there are people that have actually died um from from being a software engineer. I know one guy that was working with me that died because the workload was too much and he didn't take time to rest. So your health matters a lot because these people, the people they are working for, if something happens to you today, God forbid, they will find another replacement for you like the next day. So take care of your health. Know when you have reached a limit whereby you're both you're tired, you're mentally and you're physically exhausted. Just take time to rest. You can take time to rest. You can even speak to your manager. Tell them that okay, the workload is actually too much and I just think I need to rest. Try to speak with them. They would most likely, you know, give you maybe a day off. So yeah, rest is very, very important. Like it's extremely important.
All right, thank you so much, Israel Adebulube. Ibube Moneke, does that answer all right? I guess that's all we have for today. I hope we all got something from this webinar. I know myself, I did get something. And if you don't remember anything else from today, remember this: you don't need permission to start. You need commitment. That's what you need. If, from everything our speakers have said today, there's one major thing that stands out: commitment. You need to just start, just do it. And after this webinar, don't just go back and relax or whatever. The next 90 days matter more than the next 5 years of thinking. Stop postponing, stop overthinking. Just do it. This next 90 days after this webinar matter. That's why we've also prepared a clear 90-day action plan for you to kickstart your tech journey. I think it was Israel Iyonsi or Israel Adebulube that also, okay, Israel Iyonsi that also prepared a 90-day action plan to become a software engineer. So we are going to share all of the resources, including Israel's link to his slides. We are going to be sharing all of this with all the attendees, and we'll be sharing I shared the link to join the community and also be sending it to you via email. So all of these resources will be shared in the community. And I wish you all a good day. And I hope that after this session, you're going to start putting all of this into practice and start your tech journey and scale into a high income run. Thank you all for being here. It was amazing having you guys. Thank you to the speakers, Israel Adebulube, Yonsi Israel, and Bolahon Adebayo. You guys did amazing.